So I'm going to start by just introducing myself. I'm Nuru Andrea Manalina, and I'm Assistant Vice Provost in the Graduate School. I focus primarily on student initiatives. And so with the Doctoral Dissertation Fellowship and the Interdisciplinary Doctoral Fellowship, I've been collaborating with the Fellowship Office to make sure that for those of you interested in making the most of the fellowship year, that you get a chance to do that with a tool that I helped to create. But I also just want to congratulate every one of you on receiving your fellowship. It is a huge accomplishment. And I just want to say congratulations. I've worked in the graduate school for 19 years. I have supported numerous graduate students through the application process. I know that it is rigorous and you're, the best among the best. So I'm just so delighted and honored to have this opportunity to talk with you a little bit about a tool that we've been promoting in the grad school for the last 13 years. So I hope this would be an interactive session where I will stop at some point and ask for any questions, any comments. Because I'm presenting, it's hard for me sometimes to pay attention to both the chat and the content. So I will try as much as I can to see if there are any comments or to answer any questions in the chat, but also feel free to share what you would like when I pause for participation, okay? All right, so this is being recorded. There are some students who at the last minute couldn't join us, and so they would get the benefit of that, but also you can see this recording again if you would like to, if there's some information that you would like to review. All right, so let's begin. So for those of you who might have attended any workshop that I facilitated or the graduate school's welcome for first year students, if you were part of that in your first year, you might remember that I begin my presentations with a situation where it's on a Monday. So this would be review for some of you. And that's fine for those of you who are not familiar with the scenario. I invite you to participate. It's Monday, and this is where? Can somebody tell me, just blurt it out? Where is this? Is this familiar?
Central Park.
Yep, Central Park, New York. Okay, so we're on the East Coast. And I give you money, $3,000 to go across country to Hollywood, California, okay? And I give you 5 days to do so. So by Friday, you need to get there. Okay, so here you are, and you can go any direction you like to get there by the deadline that we set. And the question is, what questions would you ask me about why I'm asking you to do this? For those who have heard this before, let others who haven't answer, please. Anybody? Before you go off on your journey, what question would you ask me? And somebody says, do I need to do anything in Hollywood in the chat? Okay, so I would say, well, when you get to Hollywood, I'm gonna go ahead because there's some things that I'd like to arrange for you, possible job offer, but I'd like you to meet me at the Hollywood sign, 3 p.m. Friday. It's Monday now. I'll see you then. Okay. So the idea is that you're going cross country. Are there toll roads? Yes, but you'd have to figure out how you'd want to get through them, avoid them, pay for them, whatever you'd like. So in past workshops, students ask, what would you do first? Do I have to drive or can I fly? And the answer is yes, you have to drive, and you have to drive, nobody else. You can take people with you if you like. Some students have asked, can I keep the rest of the money if I don't spend it? Yes, if I give you $3,000 and you go across country, you don't use up all the money, you can keep the rest. Others have asked, can I bring someone with me? Yes. Why do you want me to meet you in Hollywood? Again, there's a lucrative possible opportunity that I'm going to go ahead of you to see if we can arrange, and I won't know until Friday. Okay. So in terms of what you would do next, how many of you would actually just point your car on any freeway or highway that said west? Right? You would just literally just find the nearest road or freeway that said west, and you would point your car to that. Okay. I don't know anyone who would do that. I don't know any student who have said I would do that, that I would just not doing any research, not doing any planning, I would just point my car west to get to Hollywood. You need to get a map, and a physical map if that's what you prefer, a GPS, or an actual map of some sort, whatever, okay? The point is, there is a connection between graduate school and math. Anybody want to share? What is the connection? Why would this scenario be appropriate for graduate school for students who just received a fellowship? Any thoughts? Okay. Research needs direction. Every fellowship semester needs a plan. Okay. If some of you have been TAing or RAing some sort of a structured support during your previous years, whether you're year 3, 4, or 5, whatever year you are in your graduate program, if you have been working in terms of doing service for the university in some way to support yourself previously, it might be odd at first to have a fellowship year where you are not really expected to do anything except your research and your writing. And so I've worked with a lot of former DDF and IDF recipients who really struggled. I mean, it's a wonderful blessing, right, to have this fellowship where you get to just focus on your research and your writing. And a lot of students want that kind of support. But it can also be very overwhelming in the sense that you really don't have that kind of structure that you had. You didn't have to meet somewhere, show up somewhere, like if you were TAing or instructing, or if you had to do an RA-ship for a faculty, right? So your time is your own when you're in a fellowship that doesn't have what's called a service requirement. So working with students for these 19 years, I have found that it's really important to have an idea of all the things that you want to accomplish during that year, because it's also very easy to accomplish very little. And the idea is that since you are in charge of your own time, again, nobody's sort of looking over what you're doing, where you are, it's critical to identify what it is that you want to accomplish during that year, because most likely it won't happen again exactly the same way. You might get another fellowship next year. where you're not required to do service, but you don't want to basically waste a lot of time because there isn't a formal structure for some of us. So the important thing is to make sure that you have a sense of how you're going to make the most of this year. Okay. So planning is an important part of getting a fellowship. I developed this program for Twin Cities students, graduate students, to teach in Morris or Duluth. And it's a teaching fellowship. And I required the tool that we're going to talk about in a little bit for these fellows because I found that it's very easy to actually not get anything done on your research and writing when you have multiple things that you're doing. And whatever it is that you're going to be doing in addition to your teaching and writing, whether you're paid for it or not, it's important to keep the things that you want front and center to be accomplished. So what I want you to think about, and we're going to take about a minute or two for you to actually just reflect, what do you want to accomplish during your fellowship year? Okay, of course, you want to make sure that you're doing your research and your writing, but what else? Okay, yes, you are paid to do your research and writing to make progress on your chapters, on your data collection, on whatever it is that you submitted to the graduate school to get the fellowship, whatever plan, research plan, and so on that you devised. In addition to that, what else might you accomplish during this coming year? Okay, so part of that is proactive planning by assessing your assets in terms of what are you really already good at, but also where can you grow? Okay, so because you got the fellowship, it means that you are at that more advanced stage where you already have a research identified, you're beginning to think about your future path, like once you're done. So you're not first year students. You're beginning to, what I call, implement the exit plan, right? How are you going to transition from after the fellowship to whatever it is that you want to do with your degree? So it's thinking about long-term and short-term goals. So as you think about that, I want you to think about essential skills and transferable skills for what it is that you want to do while you're in graduate school, while you're doing the fellowship, and skills that would help you beyond. Okay, so some examples would be administrative or managerial skills, instructional facilitation, research, interpersonal communication, writing, and presentation. So again, we do expect you to do the research and the writing, but there are many other areas that you can grow because you don't have to do 50% TAing or something like that. You have time to focus on other parts of your professional development in addition to research and writing that you could use this year, right? What we call making the most of the fellowship year. Okay. So I want you to just reflect a little bit on that, about a minute, and jot down just some thoughts on, if you had your choice, what are some things that you're not feeling confident about, not as strongly about skills, again, for graduate school, but also for beyond, for whatever kind of careers you're pursuing, that you want to focus on for the fellowship year. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to put my timer, about a minute to just do that self-assessment. Okay, so anybody just want to share a little bit, other than research and writing, what other skills or experiences do you think you'd benefit from for the fellowship year if such resources were provided? What sort of skills would you like to focus on? You can put it in the chat, I will look for it. Mentoring, okay. Networking, very good. Yep, presentation, personal, building community. Publication, yeah. Teaching in non-academic settings, okay. Yep, very good. Science communication, yeah. So one of the things that I get a lot from graduate students who are, again, sort of exiting about a year or two out from leaving, graduating, is they always say, you know, I'm starting to look at job postings for the kinds of careers that I want. And I'm seeing a lot of employers, whether it's in academia or outside academia, emphasizing on the importance of having someone with cultural diversity experience, right? Working with individuals who are from cultures other than their own. And the student would say, I really haven't had an opportunity to do that. I haven't been in diverse settings, and I don't know how to communicate the kind of experiences that I've had on my CV or cover letter. Can you help me? Okay. And a part of that isn't that the student didn't have the opportunity, they just didn't know about them. And so they're sort of in a difficult position where they have to demonstrate to a potential employer that they can work with people from all over the world, from different cultures, and they really can't demonstrate that. So more and more employers are looking for people who have that ability to communicate with others who are different. So difference is an important part of that professionalism, understanding difference and how to communicate about being different and respecting and valuing others' differences. So when you think about, again, your career path, where you want to land, most likely, whether it's in academia or industry or nonprofit or government, they're all going to make sure that they have candidates who can work with diverse groups. So if for whatever reason you haven't had the opportunity to interact with people from different parts of the world, you might really want to focus on that as part of your fellowship year, and see how that looks like for you. What are some ways for you to do that? So that's just one example of a transferable skill. And a sense of professionalism that's just expected of each and every one of us wherever we go. Okay. Any questions or comments about that? So I still see in the chat also research dissemination, creating engaging and flexible curriculum. Okay, that's great. Anything else about what you think you want to focus on in addition to research and writing for your fellowship year? Okay, so can you give some examples of opportunities we can seek to demonstrate we can engage with diverse groups? Yeah, so for example, keep your eye on this, but in January, I will be conducting a workshop with a colleague. She used to work in ISSS, International Student and Scholar Services, and she retired, but we're contracting with her to come back and do what we call a cross-cultural leadership retreat. Okay, so it's a 2-day online program where it's open to all graduate students at the university, and we limit it to about 50 to 60, but there are other ways to participate too if you're not part of that 50 and 60, but it's where we work on how to develop leadership skills in a cross-cultural setting. So you will be engaging with graduate students from different disciplines and cultures. So we purposefully select students from various backgrounds to have that diversity of participants in the room. And we do a lot of activities, and you will be able to put together a leadership plan for a kind of project that you would like to implement based on the concepts learned in the cross-cultural leadership retreat. And you will get a gold badge. Okay, and the badge is something that you can display on your social media outlets for potential employers and people in the network to know what you did to get that badge. But the idea is not just a badge, but for you to develop skills conceptually and practically to communicate with people from different backgrounds. So that's just one example. Others, of course, is to join student organizations that have diverse students. It could also be volunteering in the community in ways that's safe. I know we're in a pandemic, but there are ways that you can talk to people, and we'll address that in a little bit, about how you can get the skills and the experiences that you need to accomplish that particular goal. Excuse me. Okay, so is the badge available for those who took the intercultural leadership workshop in the past? Yeah, unfortunately not, because in the past, the workshops didn't require that extra piece of producing a plan. That's the reason you get the badge, is because you're actually putting together a plan to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the concepts raised in the retreat. Okay, so let's move forward. Part of assessing what you want to focus on for your fellowship year is about gathering information, which is sort of what we're doing. We're saying, I want to focus on XYZ skills. Maybe it's facilitation, like meeting facilitation. Maybe it's leadership, right? Maybe I want to work in a nonprofit where I'm expected to make decisions, lead a group of people, but I don't feel like I have that skill. So you're gathering information about yourself, about what's needed to be successful in the kind of career you want. You put together a plan, you implement it, you actually go through the steps of what the plans that you've made. You revise based on feedback from others, and then gather information again to help revise your plan, you implement, and so on. So it's a cyclical plan, right? This is a process of being as informed as you can about what you need to focus on, what are the resources, what are the steps that I have to meet that plan, and actually putting into practice and getting feedback. So if you think about this, this 4-step process that just keeps going is sort of any process that involves project management, which is another whole separate topic that we're going to do a workshop on in January as well, and for which you can also get badged. So if project management is something that you listed as an area you want to focus on, also look for my email about project management retreat. But this is what it's basically like. You gather information, you put a plan in step, put it into motion, and then revise. So it's no different when you think about planning for your academic year, the fellowship year. In essence, that's what success looks like, right? You actually have some guidance to navigate a project. And for you, for the fellowship year, the project is making the most to accomplish more than just the research and the writing. Or make sure that you, at the very least, accomplish your research and writing. Because again, I have seen students, for example, the students that go up to Morris and Duluth to teach, I go and visit them twice a semester. I visit them in the fall and the spring, and they develop this individual development tool that we're going to talk about. So they have that, I have a copy of it. They go up to Morris or Duluth. I visit with them to say, hey, it's October, it's November, how's it going? And you won't believe how many students said, I know what I wrote in my plan, but I haven't made any progress on my dissertation. I haven't made any progress in my research because I have X, Y, and Z things. So I would say, at the very least, we expect you, meaning those of us in the grad school who help put together the fellowship and all, we expect you to accomplish your goals around research and writing, but also to make sure that you're preparing for that next step, even beyond that, what I call that exit plan. Okay, so all in all, success is that I would anticipate that you meet your goals around your research, your dissertation, and so on, but also you met your goals around project management, intercultural communication, presentation skills, mentoring, networking, anything that you think is really critical for you to progress. Okay, let's look at the chat here for a second. This does sound like a great opportunity. Another thing I found immensely helpful is completing the office, the certificate. Yes, the thing with that is, from what I understand, it's just there's like a lot of people interested in that, and some students who have wanted to go through that haven't been able to. So absolutely, the university has a lot of resources. So the gathering information piece is going to be a critical part of your success in terms of what resources are there. Okay, so anybody already has an individual development plan or some sort of planning tool? Just raise your hands. So for some, yeah, who already has or maybe it's required for your department. Neuroscience, I know it's required. Yep. So Catherine is saying, yep. There are not a lot, but there are certain programs that do require the IDP. Okay. Okay, it's part of the prospectus. Yep. Okay. Elizabeth uses the NCFDD's planning tools. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. So if for whatever reason you've never heard of an IDP or an individual development plan, you can even just Google and you'll find all kinds, hundreds of templates of what people are using, again, to map that journey to whether it's semester by semester, year by year, but more and more employers, universities are requiring or strongly recommending the IDP only because students, in case of university and postdocs, some are just floating, like they really don't know how to prioritize their priorities, if that makes sense, right? So what an IDP does is it helps you really understand that, in 24 hours, you can only accomplish so many things. And yes, if we were superhuman, we would be able to multitask and be effective in everything. But we know that there are limitations to what we can do in amount of time and just all of the roles that we play, right? Like some of you might be parents, you're taking care of parents. I mean, there's just so many things. So in addition to your research and writing, what else would you prioritize as equally important for you to focus on during the year? So that's what the IDP does. So it has 3 objectives. It helps you identify professional goals. It helps you think about, okay, so let's say I want to enhance my presentation skills. I'm really not comfortable presenting in public or in Zoom or whatever. And I need some resources around that. So helps you think about what you want to focus on, what skills do you already have, and a plan so that you can acquire those competencies, okay? So this is sort of like the overall format of an IDP, where students would conduct a self-assessment. And this is a tool that you use with mentors, people who know you well or who you'd like to know better, and people who have information that could help you accomplish your goals. So again, there are various areas that you can focus on, and doesn't have to be all that's here, there could be more. But after you have a sense of, research, yes, writing, yes, maybe 2 or 3 more. I wouldn't go more than 3. So maybe you'd say publishing, presentation, and if there's one more you really think is important, let's say leadership or project management, I would say 3 is a good goal, other than research and writing, so 5 total. But some students are like, no, I really just want to do research and writing and maybe 2 more areas that I think is really important for me to get that competency for the kind of career that I want, and to make sure that I am successful in graduate school, right? So that assessment part is step 1. You write the plan, the IDP, you implement it, survey opportunities, like just continue to make sure that you have all the information, you revise, and then you go back to step 1 again. So for example, if you find that, I think I'm actually doing really well with publication, I think I can add another area that I want to focus on. So I'm going to start focusing on funding, looking for funding for next year when this fellowship is over, right? Whether it's a national fellowship, international fellowship, whatever it is that you need. Okay, so that just gives you an idea of what the thing looks like. So someone could have this as a template of their IDP. So you identify the areas to develop. So research, writing, presentation, for example, you could have 2 more or 1 more after presentation. If you want to do a long-term goals column, you can. Some students don't. They're like, you know what, I don't even want to think about, 5-10 years down the road. I just want to think about fall semester and spring semester. So that's fine. But long-term goals would be goals that sort of like yeah, about 5 to 10 years. So for example, in research, you might say that eventually I would like to do research with X, Y, and Z group at Michigan State. Like, is there a lab? Is there a community of researchers that you want to join eventually? That would help your mentors, whoever's looking at this IDP, to understand where you're coming from, why your short-term goal is the way it is, because it's based on your long-term goals. Okay, so just an example of why some students put long-term goals. But then there's also action steps and timeline, and some students have to help them, right, to guide them. They've divided the action steps within like fall 2021 or spring 2022. They would put bullets underneath those, like, this is what I'm going to accomplish, the strategies and steps and timeline. And so strategy and research could be go to Bakken Museum, for example. I'm making that up, but any museum to collect data on experiences of youth in this particular community, whatever. So that's your overall strategy. Okay, so what are you actually going to do fall 2021? Some students are even extremely detailed, and instead of just saying fall 2021, under that they put a step and then an actual month. They're very specific. They're like, I want to collect that data by October. Some would even put dates just to push themselves and say, if I haven't done this by October 15th, then I know I need to revisit and then maybe push the deadline out to October 30th. So you can be as specific or as general as you want. It's up to you. But students that I've worked with on this find that the more specific they are, the better they're able to hold themselves accountable. The more specific they are, the better the mentors are able to say, are you sure that that's enough time for you to write the paper? Like, you want to publish in such and such journal, you're going to need a little bit more time. So a part of the IDP is a way to communicate your intentions to your mentors, your resources, so that they can help you see if your plans are feasible, if it's too ambitious, or if it's not ambitious enough. Okay, so just a thought on how specific should you be on the strategy and the steps and time. Any questions about the overall structure or template of the IDPs? It's a very simple tool. It's so simple, it's ridiculous. It's like, it's just rows and columns. But the reason we make it so simple at the University of Minnesota is that anyone can read it and understand right away what you're trying to do. And you can just follow it going across the columns. Any questions? I'll look in the chat. Okay, so I want to show you an example of a student's IDP in the area of presentation. So this student has long-term goals of effective use of technology with diverse audience. So for the student example, diverse means someone who's not in their field. So let's say the student is in biomedical engineering. And oftentimes you'll find, as you're talking more about your research, you're talking to people who are not experts, non-technical people, but you need to be able to communicate, your work to any audience. So this person is saying, I need to know how to do that. So what they decided to do for short term is to learn one tool by gathering information around the university, like what departments are offering training for presentation using technology. And so this person knows that they can learn one tool in the fall, but after learning one tool, they'll probably be confident to learn 2 tools in spring, okay? So they looked around, found out that staff in Center for Education and Innovation and Office of Information Technology have resources to help faculty and staff and students develop presentation skills. So this person then, so their overall strategy is to contact these offices, connect with people, and they found that Jill Blaine in CI and Kelly Strong in OIT actually develop these workshops and facilitate them. So their plan in fall 2021 is to take the workshops with Jill and Kelly. And then in 2022, they'll find 2 workshops, and also they will do a mock presentation to an audience. So with the tools that they learned in fall and spring, they will actually do a presentation, get their colleagues and mentors and so on together to do a mock presentation. And the resources they have identified would be the staff in CI and OIT. Bill W could be somebody they saw presenting using a tool they really liked, and they would connect with Bill to say, hey, where'd you learn that tool? Can you teach me, or how can I learn it? Saeed K is someone that it could be a peer or someone they also know is really good at this area, and the same with Farah. So this could be a template, could be a model for you if you're thinking about any area that you want to grow, where there are resources at the university. Would start there. Also look within the Twin Cities if there's training, information, free or otherwise, that you could benefit from. Having this kind of plan is easier to follow than just feeling overwhelmed that, oh, I need to develop better presentation skills, but I have just no idea where to begin to do that. So this is a way to make the plan, like it's all in your head if it's not written down somewhere, whether on a computer or on a piece of paper, whatever. It makes it less daunting, right? Because you've broken down what seems to be like a huge project into manageable steps. And that's what project management is. It's working sort of backwards and saying, if this is what I want to accomplish by a certain time, how do I go backwards to where I am to make sure that I meet that goal? So your timeline for the fellowship is May 2022. You have 2 semesters, and this is one way you can think of breaking down what you will do each semester. Okay. Any questions on this example? Okay, all right. So here's another example. So this is for someone who's earlier in the process, but I just want you to get a sense of how different areas for development can look like, right, in terms of the IDP. So for this person, they want to join on-campus organizations, could be a first-year student, and also want to volunteer in the Twin Cities for organizations, and do the same in the spring. So for fall 2021, it would be gathering information, looking at websites, and timeline. This person says, I want to join one campus organization in October, and connect with others in November, find a Twin Cities organization in December, for example. So again, it can be very detailed or general, depending. And this person has these resources in place. And I have a lot of students who come to me, first-year students, to say, how do I connect to the larger Twin Cities community? So that's why this person has me there as a resource. Okay. So again, just an example of how one might break down the timeline to specific months. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So right now I'm going to stop share and I'm going to put in the chat a link to graduate school website where you can learn more about the IDP. Okay. And I want us to look at some examples, other examples that students have done. These are actual examples of IDPs. So I want you to go to the website that I just chatted. And look at, for example, just for an example, the third-year PhD student humanities. Okay. And so on your own, as you think about, as you're in the process of drafting your own IDP, if you could take a look at that video that's on the website to get a student's perspective of how the IDP helped her with her own journey. So just to give you a sense of what others are doing and why they're doing it. So this IDP from PhD in humanities, this was actually from a student who taught at probably Duluth, don't remember right now. But so this student, of course, focused on the dissertation because that was a part of the fellowship too, publishing, teaching, and job search, fellowships, and grants. So this person was very, very ambitious, had all these areas that they wanted to focus on. And I'm not going to go throughout the whole thing, but I want you to get a sense of what they put for their dissertation goals, long-term and short-term. So this person used 2 years as a long-term goal, and the strategies to meet those goals, timeline, and so on. Okay. For some of you, again, depending on what year you're in, job search might be more real than others. So if you don't have a lot of time left and you're ready to be done, you definitely want to start thinking about that during your fellowship year while you still have some time to do that. Okay. And there's also one for the postdoc. Take a look at that as well. If some of you in the sciences or you know that that's something that you're going to need to do, look at what a postdoc has put for their template, their example that you can use. Okay. So any questions? Right now, I just want to open it to just discussion or engage with you a little bit on what we've covered so far. And feel free to speak up if you would like to. also just give you a little bit of time to look through the examples and through the website. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to just sort of play around with that IDP website. There's a question in the chat. In using an IDP, have you mentioned reviewing it with your mentor? Would you recommend reviewing it with an advisor as well? So absolutely, I would say review it with your mentors and advisors. The thing though, is you need to keep in mind what you want to share with your reviewers. For example, there's a department on campus that does not allow graduate students to share their IDPs with their advisors. The students share their IDPs with their Director of Graduate Studies, the DGS. The advisor does not get to see the IDP. Can somebody tell me why this department might have this practice in place? Why should the advisor not see the student's IDP? What are your guesses? Sounds strange, right? I would say, yeah, if the advisor disagrees, they might force the student to focus on other things. Perhaps shares too much that is still tentative. Okay. So ideally, okay, there shouldn't be secrets or surprises between advisors and graduate students. In other words, we hope that advisors will be supportive of whatever career path you want, however you want to guide the rest of your graduate education, that your advisor would support you in that decision. Whether you choose to go to academia or industry or whatever it is what you want to do, nonprofit, that your advisor would be supportive of that. That's the ideal situation in any graduate program. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And those of us in the graduate school who work with faculty, we're trying very hard to foster that culture of support for graduate students, regardless of what they want to do with their lives. Okay. So some graduate students in the past have found, just like it was chatted, that if their advisor didn't agree with a particular path, whether it's a career or research or publishing or whatever, that they felt they couldn't thrive and do their best because the advisor did not support them, to get a certain fellowship and so on. And if the advisor knew about that, then the student felt that they were they might be at a disadvantage. So they hid stuff from their advisor. So if you have a really good relationship with your advisor and they have constantly supported you with whatever decision you made, even if it might have contradicted with what they had wanted for you, then I would say absolutely share your IDP with your advisor, people in your circle. You can also choose to put things on your IDP that you want them to know about and not put other things on there. Because the IDP is yours to do with whatever you want. You decide what you put on there. So for example, if you're not comfortable talking about a particular skill that you want to develop or a particular journal that you want to publish in or whatever it is, you don't have to put that on there. You can put that on there and show it to people that you want to see that aspect of your career or your goals, right? So you get to control. That's why it's so effective in that it puts the student in the driver's seat, right? Remember about, driving from New York to California, you get to control it. You get to say, I'm going to share these things that I want to work on with my advisor or with Nuru or with, Dean so-and-so, but I'm not going to put these things. And some students, they meet with me to draft their IDP and say, can you look at this and let me know if this is relevant to what I want to do? Am I being too ambitious? Am I not ambitious enough in terms of timeline? I feel comfortable sharing this thing with my advisor, this thing not. How do I make sure that is reflected in this document? Okay, so you have that control over what you put in it. When you do meet with your mentor, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about in terms of benefits, when you do share your document, it's really important that you take them step by step through it in terms of the goals, why you have the strategies you've listed, the timeline. Because if there's somebody who's very familiar with resources, let's say in the research area, they can help you identify other resources, right? So you don't just put it in front of them or email it to them and say, here, I've done this. But if at all possible, it would be good to have a face-to-face, whether it's online or in-person meeting, and actually go through the IDP with them, if that's available, if they have time available to do that. So that's what students do with me, is that we sit down and I ask them questions like, okay, so I see here that you've listed this organization that you want to volunteer in. Why this organization? Because then maybe I can think of others that could be a good fit for them as well. So the IDP is a tool, not just for you to plan out, but to communicate what it is exactly you want to accomplish to your networks, so they know they can help you find more opportunities than just what you have listed there. Okay, so this is about engaging people in your network, not just putting something in front of them and saying, just tell me your thoughts. I mean, that's great too, right? I mean, but I hope they're paying attention, because you're not there to make sure they're paying attention, right? You're just giving them a link. So what I would say is, once you have a draft of your IDP, with the people that you've put in as resources on the resources side column, you would ask for a 30-minute Zoom meeting or in person over coffee, however you're interacting with people, however you feel comfortable interacting, and just say, I just want to run this plan by you and just get your feedback, directly, in case there's some things that I can clarify that may not be clear just from the document. Okay. All right, the question: how ambitious should we be when drafting this? I had set some summer fellowship goals that ended up being very difficult to meet, and I've had to readjust. Is it better to have more goals on the IDP and potentially not meet them all, or better to have less goals but add more later as you accomplish things? Okay, excellent question. I would say it depends on the kind of person you are. I do this workshop for faculty and staff too, because I want them to not be surprised if you as graduate students come to them and say, here's my IDP, can you review it? Let's talk about it. I don't want them to say, what the heck is an IDP? What's my role in that? So we are working with faculty and staff to make sure they support you when you're doing this work. So a faculty said that too in the workshop. The faculty said, well, what happens if I'm working with a student who is not able to meet those goals, like, consistently not able to meet the goals, like always having to readjust because they can't, for whatever reason, maybe technical reasons, their experiment didn't go the way they planned, or training was canceled or whatever, right? So what I want you to think about is, how do you as a person react or deal with things that are not done the way you would expect it to? Do you, for example, get really down on yourself and feel depressed, like, oh, I didn't meet that timeline, I didn't submit that proposal, I must not be doing well, right? Or are you the kind of person who's like, you know what, that's okay, I will adjust and try to submit that again next year, I'll be fine, I'll find something else to take the place of that opportunity. Okay, if you're the kind of person who doesn't like to not accomplish things in the time and in the manner that you want, then I would say don't be as ambitious. Put less goals and accomplish the ones that you can accomplish, so that you don't feel that you're failing yourself or failing others. Do what you want to do and what you think you can do in a given amount of time. If you're someone who's like, no, it's okay, I put all these goals up there, but I know that most likely I would only accomplish 3 of them or 2 of them, and I'll be fine, then go ahead and put as much as you think you can do, knowing, right, that you may not be able to accomplish everything. So it really just depends on your style of planning and how you deal with unexpected setbacks. What I don't want is for you to keep not meeting goals and keep having to readjust, because in the end, I worry about just your well-being, right? Physically, emotionally, mentally. I mean, if you're feeling that you're just not accomplishing anything, that is also problematic. And so I'd like to meet with any of you who really want to talk more about how do I set up goals that I'm actually, at least say, 50% will be able to meet. Let me give you an example. So our dean, Scott Lanyon, the graduate school, he requires the IDP of his direct reports. So if you're going to start a new year, he wants to know, what are you going to focus on? How are you going to do it? And how can he help you? And who else are you bringing into the conversation to help you? So for last year, so fall 2020, I had 3 goals, and I was only able to meet 2 of them. So 3 goals, meaning 3 areas that I wanted to focus on. And I wasn't able to do anything on one of the areas. And that area was supervision. Like, I wanted to get more experience, more training about how to be a really good supervisor. But for whatever reason, I couldn't really find anything that suited me at the university, and in my professional associations, there wasn't anything. So I just felt like that's a really important area, because I supervise people, but how am I really going to develop in that area, right? So what I said was, well, I did meet the goals of 2 other areas that I wanted, which was visibility in the work that I do, and also more opportunities to present internationally. I was able to meet those 2. So I felt really good about that, but that other one, not so much. So what I decided was, okay, I will focus on the supervision part this fall 2021. And amazingly, I got an email early this week that the Office of Human Resources, or some entity, will actually be doing some intensive training this fall for supervisors. And you have to be nominated by your boss to do that. So my boss nominated me because he knew that getting supervisory skills was something I really wanted because of the IDP that I submitted last year. I did not achieve that, the goals in that area, but now I can. Okay, so it's important to to know how you react to things when they don't go your way. Do you beat yourself up and like, I'm not gonna do this IDP anymore because I can't ever meet goals? Or is it better for you to start out small and then increase as you go? Okay, so I hope that's helpful to that question. Let's finish up the rest of our conversation, and then we can have more time to discuss. Okay. If you're doubting, well, why should I even have an IDP? That's just like more work. Like I have to do many things already. Now she's asking me or encouraging me to do this. A part of it is really helping you get more recognized and communicate better with your mentor. So it helps you strategically identify your strengths and areas to grow, and making sure your mentor understands that. So my dean, my mentor, understood my concern that was I a good supervisor? And knowing that I needed to gain those skills. Engages the mentor in your professional goals, okay? And it also helps you and your mentor put a plan that's thoughtful, right? That you've really taken the time to think about yourself and your needs to prioritize you. The IDP, I originally created it for postdocs. It wasn't for graduate students. Because in 2007, I directed this postdoc fellowship program, and the postdocs that came into the university to do a 2-year postdoc and then hopefully transition into faculty positions, they were just floating. They didn't know what they were doing in this fellowship. So the dean at the time said, you need to have a plan for them. Otherwise, they will just waste their fellowship. And they won't get a faculty position, and they won't get their research and writing done. So the thoughtful planning about what you want to focus on for your future careers, what skills would that be, and how are you going to get them, at least in the year that you're a DDF or IDF fellow. What you do after that, you will determine, right, after this coming year. But this IDP, I'm asking you and encouraging you to do for this year. And what would that look like? Okay. A part of the IDP is to help you increase your self-efficacy, which is simply your belief in your ability to perform a certain task. And Albert Bandura, for those of you in psychology, you might know him well. It's an example of the 6-year-old kid who was told that she cannot go to 1st grade unless she knows how to tie her shoelaces. Because the teachers at her school did not want to spend all their time running around after kids, worrying that they would trip over themselves because their shoelaces weren't tied. So the teachers said, parents, if you're going to send your kids to 1st grade and you're making them wear shoes with laces, you better make sure that they know how to tie their shoelaces. Otherwise, give them Velcro. So the 6-year-old kid was very distressed about having to learn how to tie her shoes. And the father, who's a colleague of mine, said, well, I will mentor you. Like, it's no big deal. I'll show you how to tie your shoes. The first time the kid tries it, she, of course, screams and says, I can't do it. This is so difficult. Don't make me wear laces. Can't we just go back to the Velcro? So the father says, no, that's okay. I'm here to help you. And every time the kid can't do it, there's that level of discomfort. We all experience it whenever we do something new. We always want to go back to the comfort zone. For the kid, it's the Velcro. Like, can't I just wear my Velcro? Forget the laces. I'll never be able to tie my shoelaces. But it's the same thing with us as adults and anybody, actually. When you do something that is new for the first time, something you haven't done before, so whether it's writing a dissertation, doing research, learning how to present effectively, communicating with people from different cultures, whatever it is, you will have a level of discomfort. And you'd always want to fall back to the comfort level. There is this joke, I guess, stereotype on campus that graduate students have the cleanest bathrooms. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Okay. Why do graduate students have the cleanest bathrooms? Because whenever they're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, discomfort about a particular part of their journey, whether it's the writing a proposal, putting together a DDF application, whatever it is, they're uncomfortable with it because it's kind of new and it's stressful. They go to the bathroom and they clean it, right? Why? Anybody tell me, why would cleaning the bathroom be a stress reliever? Okay. Yeah, cleaning is comfortable because we know how to do it, right? We've been cleaning our bathrooms. I'm hoping that you've been doing that for years. And it's something that you're comfortable doing. Same thing with a colleague who said when he was writing his dissertation, his favorite place was Home Depot because he would go out in the garden and start gardening because writing the dissertation was too uncomfortable, too stressful for him at the time. So the IDP helps you with that level of discomfort. What it does is it helps you to plan out where you might have discomfort. So, for example, with leadership, like leadership, you get in leadership experience is something that's maybe not new, completely new to you, but something you haven't really thought about. How do I do that? Where do I get the training, the opportunity? Mapping it out will help you gain that confidence to say, you know what, it's not that bad. All I have to do is X, Y, Z, and I'll get familiar with this topic, right? So for that student who had oral presentation as an area to grow, it was just sitting down and thinking about where on campus, there must be someone on campus doing this training. Can't be that difficult to find someone, right? Same thing. So by having a plan, it helps build your self-efficacy to actually accomplish the goals in the areas you've identified. Okay, so it stops you from going to that fallback place, that area of comfort. It stops you from continuing to clean the bathroom because now you actually have a plan, right, to gain those cross-cultural skills or networking or what have you. Okay. Any questions about self-efficacy and how the IDP helps you to gain that confidence to actually accomplish those goals? And somebody put productive procrastination. Okay. Okay. So my suggestion, the reason I have this workshop today, still somewhat early August, is that I would like for you to start drafting. And it begins with identifying the areas that you want to focus on. So if you think about, our scenario of, Monday, you're in Central Park. By Friday, you need to get to Hollywood. Think about that in terms of, if I'm done with this fellowship, so Nuru is giving me like, May 2022 as the deadline, kind of like the Hollywood. Work backwards from there in terms of your timeline to do things. But it starts with identifying on a Monday what it is you want to focus on. do you want to focus on just two things? So like for me, with my boss, it was three things that I submitted to him for fall 2020. For fall 2020, I gave him, that I wanted to do more international conferences. I wanted supervisory skills and such. How many for you? Okay. If three is too much beyond the research and writing, just do two or just start with one. So research, writing, and another area. It's up to you. And then I would say gather the information on campus if there are things that the university offers. Google things outside the university, links to resources on your particular area that you want to develop, and then start what I would call a preliminary draft. I offer my services to graduate students who really want to share a draft with me. So send it to me. You can email it to me. Just say, IDP draft, and then we can set up a time to meet to discuss it if you want, right? So with any student who attends any of my workshops, I offer that individual consultation. You have made time for me, I will make time for you. So don't feel like, oh, I'm bothering her, she's busy, whatever. No, especially because you are a fellowship recipient of a major graduate school fellowship, I will make time for you to look at your IDP, make suggestions for resources if I know of them, and just really help you learn how to make this tool work for you and how to communicate it to your mentors and your resources. So in your email subject line, just put IDP draft. And then I know that this is somebody that I should absolutely open the email right away and start communicating. So I would say, starting today, if you really want to make the most of your fellowship year, identify one or two areas other than research and writing. Start thinking about your goals for those areas, your timeline, and connect with me between now and when school starts. And if you're really busy and you're like, I don't have time to start an IDP now, but I'd like to start working on it when school starts so that we still have time even when school starts. That's fine, but I would like you to do this sooner than later so that school starts and you have a plan in place. I used to run a summer institute for 17 years for first year graduate students who received major fellowships from the university. And they had to be nominated by their DGS to participate in the Summer Institute. And I required the IDP for all of the Summer Institute participants. And I would check in with them in February. So they finish the Summer Institute, they have an IDP, we meet again in February, and I check in to say, how did you do on your IDP? Like what you created for me for the Summer Institute, we implemented in the fall, I hope. How did it go? And many, many times students say, you know what, if I didn't have an IDP, I would have been lost. And they said they ended up teaching their peers about using an IDP because they knew more about how to navigate the first semester because they had an IDP. And they had me help them draft it. So their peers were like, wait a minute, how'd you find out about that opportunity? Where did you learn that? Things like that. So they were like, Nuru, as much as possible, tell people about the process of using an IDP because it really helps them hit the ground running, whether you're just starting a program or you're starting a fellowship. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, just look at the chat quick in case. Okay. All right, so we're nearing the end. So getting the plan. Okay, overall approach, resources. And again, these are just recommendations. You might have others that I have not put on here that you think you need to focus on. Again, it's a cyclical process of assessing, getting your resources, that gives you opportunities, that develops skills, that builds confidence. Okay. And speaking of resources, the grad school has quite a bit. And I don't know if you've had a chance during your time so far, but if you haven't, make sure you explore the academic and career support unit. That's my unit of the grad school. And there are like a lot. I mean, if I were still a grad student, I'd probably be really overwhelmed with all the resources that are there, but we're trying to find a way to help you prioritize what resources to look at. Part of that is the IDP, but just make sure that as you're drafting your IDP, you know what resources you can put in the resources column by going to our graduate school academic and career support. Gear Plus, if you're not familiar with that yet, all of the transferable skills that we talked about, like leadership and management, professional development, career, communicating, whatever, you just click on one of these areas and then there are resources there for you that we have sort of curated through the different vendors we have that provide online resources. And that's it. I say this to first year students, but I just want to reiterate, because I think it's nice to hear this message wherever you are in your graduate program. If at any point in the fellowship you're feeling stagnant, lost with your research and writing, you're not making the progress you want, you're feeling like maybe you shouldn't even be here. The imposter syndrome can be at any stage of the graduate school process. I just want you to remember that you were invited to come to graduate school. You were chosen from a pool of many. And what we want you to do is to really enjoy it, to feel that you're making a difference in your field, in your department. I tell people my research and writing stage, like third and fourth year of my PhD, was the best time of my life, because I got to interview these exceptional K through 12 teachers. They're at different stages of the K through 12 process. I used to be a high school teacher, and we just talked. It was my research, yes. They were telling me about their experience as teachers, but it was a conversation. It was like from one teacher to another. So I really loved talking to them and learning about what they were doing and writing it up. I didn't think of writing as this arduous, burden, like, man, now I got to go home and write this up. It was a joy because I loved what I was doing. I loved teaching. I loved talking to teachers. So I want you, as much as possible, to reflect back on this fellowship year with joy, right? And if a part of that is just sort of mapping it out so that you can enjoy it better instead of trying to figure out all the things you're supposed to do, then I would want that for you, okay? So we have 5 minutes left. Anything else that I haven't covered, questions you have? Comments? Okay, was this helpful? Does this make sense at all, or it's just too much? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so I will stick around for the next several minutes if anybody wants to say anything else, but I hope you take me up on my offer to show me a draft of your IDP, please. Just so you know, it's going to be required for future DDF and IDF fellows to apply. So as part of the application process, they have to put together an IDP. Okay. Thank you, everyone, with your kind comments. Thank you.